There are a lot of different ways to handle life, death, and how to get there in TTRPGs. But my favorite versions of these systems are when the mechanics are inseparable from the experience that the players and the characters are having, both in and out of combat. Hey there, folks, Wrel here. I'm the sole author of Distal, a D20 TTRPG built on hardships, not heroes. Today we're going to be doing a speedrun of how some of that hardship manifests through health, wounds, and death marks. As a character in Distal, you've turned to a life of an adventurer. It's a long road, it's a hard life, and eventually and purposefully will wear you down. Because we play the long game here, but let's start with the moment to moment first. When a character's health drops to 0, they take a wound. There's no clunkiness of having to math out the thresholds for major and minor wounds, anything like that. We just use health, clean, simple, traditional, until you take the wound. At that point, you need to steel yourself. How bad did you just get rocked? How much fight do you still have left in you? How horrible is the situation? Well, we can roll some dice and figure that out. When you steel yourself, you roll your lineage's health die and you add your class's health bonus, and then your health pops back up to whatever the result is. Mind you, the wound is still there until you take some lengthy downtime to get it patched up. So health is really just a representation of how close you are to taking your next wound. But sometimes taking a wound can be a good thing for certain classes. The Berserker, for example, gets access to extra class effects once they take their first wound. So they really want to mix it up, they want to cause problems, and they want to take all the hits. This is an example of how we tie core mechanics to core class fantasies, and we do this stuff all throughout the book. Let's say that you're level 1, you fall over, not dead, just dying. You've taken a couple wounds now. We set your health to 0. You can crawl around, you can even attack if you want to, but ultimately, you're fighting to remain conscious. You take your first death mark immediately, but we'll get to that in a bit. Each time your turn comes up, or immediately whenever you take damage, you will roll to remain conscious. If you fail that roll 2 times back to back, you fall unconscious. And if you fall unconscious, you take a death mark at the start of each of your turns. And it also takes you longer to get back into combat. It's just all bad situation. You don't want that. Now let's switch focus. Let's talk about death marks. This is where we start to think about the long game over months or years of watching your character develop session by session. Distal is built to support this kind of experience, so we go kind of hard with it. Death marks in Distal are permanent marks against your character. Permanent. They represent a brush with death, and if you accrue enough of them, you will die permanently. There are no revive spells. There are no ways to reverse death marks. In fact, while you're dying in combat, your allies can stabilize you. They can get you back on your feet, but the more death marks that you accrue, the higher the DC for doing that is, or the more magical healing that you'll need to funnel them. Eventually, mundane efforts to stabilize somebody to stop working altogether because the DC gets too high. At that point, you need to rely on magical healing instead. That's intentional. In the early days of your character, they're represented by their youth, their vitality, their unbridled potential. But as time passes, as you take on more challenging endeavors and you make harder decisions, your death marks will accrue by virtue of combat. Sometimes this is actually a good thing. For example, for each death mark that you have, your maximum health increases by 1, so that it's not quite as easy to fall over the next time. Certain classes also have some interplay with death marks, like the Ferryman, which gives them more spellcasting capabilities. The closer and closer they become to that threshold, that ever dark forever. Other times this is a not so great thing. For example, death marks cause permanent scars, which can be a scar of the body, or they could be a scar of the mind, or a scar of the soul, which you roll on the table to figure out how that scar manifests and what triggers it. They also cause malignments, which are permanent stat reductions to your character. Some classes, again with everything that we do in this book, some classes like the Ember Gut, which is like a fiery warlock, can actually make use of malignments. They actually gain some power in certain respects by virtue of having them. Okay, I wanted to speed run this, but frankly, it's just a lot of information. So hopefully, it piques your interest, and if it does, you can pick up your own copy over at playdisrpg.com. I've still got stock left, and I can ship it out pretty quickly. And I love this book so much. Thanks very much, folks. Wrel signing off.